Graham Robinson.
Do I what? That's right. I can be back next year. No, I am.
Kia ora and welcome.
Good afternoon. I realise my submission will probably not be heeded, but I'd like to go on the record of saying what I have to say. Okay, first off, I'm here representing myself. The system does not allow for community groups to represent their community very well. There was roughly one month time elapsed between the release of the annual plan and request for submissions. We have a local newsletter which comes out at the end of a month. We have to submit applications for what's in it by the 15th of the previous month, or previous of that month. So there's no way to actually get something like this to go through and pass on relevant information to the public to get a submission from the community. So I would ask, if possible, whether submissions in future could be extended from 1 month to 2 months. That's the first point.
Can I stop the time, because I don't want to take any of your time, but I agree that the submission time is quite vital, and it means we have to bring our decision-making process back earlier before the end of the year so that we can get it out earlier, because everything has to be done by the 30th of June. You would have heard, I think, on the radio this morning that Auckland's voted on their plan today. So, that timetabling needs to be improved. But in the meantime, what you can do is that you can submit that you want to be heard as a group and develop the detailed submission after. So I'm just offering you a way through that for the meantime. Thank you.
Okay. The main point is the increases are far higher than people on lower incomes can sustain. Addington is an area which has a lot of people who rent because they can't afford to buy. The area breakdown on the community profiles for the Spraid and Heathcote ward online on the council website for 2013 statistics show a higher level of unemployment, more 20 to 34-year-olds who are more likely to be renting. The 65.7% homes are not owned by occupiers or family trusts, and there's a much higher level of people with lower incomes between $10,000 and $60,000. The median income is 8 to 10% lower than the Christchurch average. And between 2006 and 2013, there was a 50% increase in rent in the Addington area compared to Christchurch generally, although the rent is normally 10 to 12% lower than the Christchurch average. The fixed rate particularly has a greater effect on lower income property values. If you look at the chart on page 16 and 17, it shows that the increases are much higher for the lower values, which means it's going to affect the lower income people much more greatly than a person of better income. Statistics can sometimes be misleading. If you go by statistics, even at night time, only 1 in 7 dwarves is sleepy. The proposed rate increases are not true rates. For example, my rates back in 2007 were valued at $230,000 for my property. It's now $430,000 in 2016 and due for a revaluation, I think, next year. That's an 80.67% increase in valuation. If you break it over 9 years, it gives 8.96% increase. Okay, rates by comparison back in 2008 were $934.69. They're currently $2,621.63, which is a 180.48% increase. There's a big difference. The lower value properties in your chart, if we follow through on the 10-year plan, will end up paying roughly 1% of their capital value. Let's assume there's no increase, which there will be. but the higher value properties will end up paying roughly 0.7% of their capital value. So there's an inequality between the lower price and the higher. The ones that can't afford it are going to pay a higher percentage of their value. The ones that can afford it are going to pay a much lower percentage. So I believe you're talking about whether to accept this uniform charge, and I definitely recommend you don't. The other thing is the rates are based, all these percentages are based on the currently government valuation, and they will be changing over the next few years. So the figures we're given, even though it says the average is 4.92%, the lower end's paying 5.91%. Once you factor in the value increases, and particularly in Addington there's a lot of redevelopment with one house being replaced by 4 or 5 townhouses, those increases are going to be much higher. The second point, the rates increases themselves are inflationary. They're much higher than the official inflation rate, and they're much higher than the official consumer price index rates. People's incomes, especially beneficiaries and superannuitants, are not receiving such increases. Fuel's gone up in price, therefore food is going up in price because of transport, and most people are aware insurance costs have gone up. There's an interesting article at stats.govt.nz which says about how beneficiaries are the hardest hit by increases. Third point, I believe it's unfair to remove the amenity of on-street parking in older business areas and at the same time increase rates. There are a lot of older businesses in Addington, especially down Lincoln Road. They were built in many cases before most households had cars. I'm also very well aware that with the traffic flow in and out of the city to the outer suburbs, something needs to be done. However, it needs to be indicated very well ahead of time so that people who are renting those businesses have a choice whether they renew their lease based on the fact they're going to have no parking or whether they turn it down and move somewhere else. There's very little chance for small businesses in the suburbs to be able to retrospectively put in car parking like the malls do. They buy a whole block, put half in a car park and the rest in a big building. There's no way small businesses can do that. So if there's no parking near the business, the chances are that business is going to die out and disappear, and that's a loss of amenity for the community as well. So I'm asking that major changes such as removal of car parking and widening of streets be signalled well in advance to allow residents and businesses to make informed decisions. The fourth point I mentioned was about the transport system in the city. There's not enough to encourage people to leave their car at home. I'm over time?
I'm sorry, we've
That's all right.
run out of time, and
I knew I probably wouldn't get through it.
yeah. But if you have that in writing, could you submit it, and then that will give us an opportunity?
Well, I've submitted the briefly thing in writing.
Yes.
I've just filled out some of the more information that backs it up.
Yeah, no, that would be helpful.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'll send it in.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And our last one